I'd love to show you a really simple approach to GCSE physics problems that you might come across in exams. Things like this one up here where we need to work out the acceleration of an object. Now this was based on a video and a blog that I read from another teacher, EMC squared and all that. And if you're a teacher and want to find out the proper research and some techniques you can use with your own students, I'd really recommend having a look at the video that he did for Chat Physics. If you're a teacher, go and watch that. He explains it much better than I do. Now for the students, there's two ways you can approach this. The first one is you can write down the formula and then rearrange it. So A equals F over M. And if you're good at maths, that should be fairly straightforward. Something that some students do though, is they rely on these horrible things here. These are disgusting and should be banned from schools. Formula triangles, they're not great. And the reason for that is because in addition to having to know the physics, you have to remember the formula triangle and then actually how to manipulate that triangle. And that basically adds a lot of extra cognitive load. It basically makes it harder because in your working memory, you're trying to store the physics stuff, you're storing the numbers, and also trying to remember how to use this formula triangle. Now that's why I have never used any formula triangles in my videos. And again, there's plenty of evidence about why they're not the best way to actually understand the physics. So the approach that we can take instead is where you just need to remember FIFA. Now, I guess this is something that it's fairly easy to remember, probably something to do with football. I'm not a football fan. But here, the F stands for formula, I stands for insert, we then fine tune, and then we give our answer. So, in the question up here, we want to calculate the initial acceleration of a 120 gram banana thrown with a force of 6 newtons. So by remembering the mnemonic FIFA, we can just write that down, and then that makes sure that we then follow all of these steps. And even if you dropped a couple of marks, you maybe didn't quite get the final answer, you might still get 2 out of 4 marks for that calculation. So the formula, you should probably remember this, although often these are given in your formula sheets in the exam, but by the time you get to the end of year 11, hopefully you know most of your formulas off by heart. Here, the force is equal to mass times acceleration, a special case of Newton's second law. We can then insert the values from the question. So, do we know the force? Yes, because it's just 6.0. Do we know the mass? Yes, it's 120 grams. Now, I'm just going to fine tune that a little bit and write that down as 0.120, and that's my mass in kilograms, the standard unit we're using. And then we're going to multiply this by the acceleration, which is something that we don't know. Now, even if you're not good at rearranging equations, we've now got 6 is equal to 0.120 times a. And just as if you had an equation in maths where you maybe knew that 5x is equal to 10, you could say that x is equal to 10 divided by 5. We can now just fine tune this and also write it as 6.0 divided by 0.120 is equal to a. So it's much easier to rearrange when we have the numbers there. We can then work out the value for a, and this is equal to 50. Okay, now I would still rely on your calculator. Don't try and do it in your head. I know that you probably could do that. And in terms of the answer, we're just going to check a couple of things. Do we have the units? Well, not at the moment, but if it's an acceleration, that's measured in meters per second squared. Also, have we given this to maybe an appropriate number of significant figures? Now, in the GCSE exam, it will state very clearly the number of significant figures if that's the thing you're going to be assessed on in that question. But here, 50 is absolutely fine. If it was another value, you might need to round up or round down to an appropriate number of significant figures. And I suppose the final thing we can do with the answer is just check. Does that sound about right? Well, yeah, we're applying a fairly big force to a small banana, so the initial acceleration can be quite large. So, if you're not sure, sometimes with the calculation questions in GCSE exams, especially in physics, try and remember FIFA. Okay, this substitution method can still get you the marks. Even if you made a mistake later on, you still might get 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 4, which you wouldn't get if you just wrote down the formula triangle. In actual fact, even the exam boards like AQA, they don't give you credit for just writing out a formula triangle and just leaving that in your working out in the exam. So, FIFA for the win. Try it next time you're doing some GCSE physics past papers.